Hi, I'm Scott Rocknak, and welcome aboard the 2018 Jeanneau 54 3-cabin. This boat's a little bit of a variant over the last one that you've seen. The previous one had, of course, the oak interior, but it had a center section here that the television came in and came out of. That is off on this model. You can still get it, but this now has a TV up on the bulkhead, which I'll show you. And we still have a side galley here, and I'll go through some of the details of the advantages of that. With this galley set up, there's an expansive counter space, and where I'm standing, this is a pantry, but it also can be a place for a dishwasher. There's a large pots and pans storage underneath, and there's like a bread locker style locker here. Of course, we have all of the opening lockers with really nice hardware up here over the galley, and removable cutting boards over both of the rectangular stainless steel deep sinks. And this, of course, moves, and it has a shower style arrangement on it that you can wash dishes with, of course. And we have storage underneath. We have a 3-burner stove here, and this has holders. It's gimbaled. There's a hand hold, and of course an oven, storage underneath, a vent, shelf storage here, and lots of drawer space. And we still have the microwave coming out here. Of course, this boat has the soft closed drawers, so just push them in and they'll close on their own. And the cabinet doors also do the same on this boat, where if you pop them open and just close them, they'll close softly. Not unlike the 2-cabin model, the television is located on the bulkhead, and there's plenty of seating in this L-shaped settee to be able to see it, and you can be anywhere in the salon, and it has good visibility. This case, this boat has a Sony television. This is the Newport Boat Show 54. This 54 has a stand-up refrigerator. It has a pull here to keep it from opening. A lock. You can push the pull down. Just remember on the bottom, on the freezer pull-out drawer, there are 2 locks. Window shades retract. Everything that is a light, a port light on this boat, or a window has a shade. Either it's overhead or on the sides. They all have shades. The chart table is a nice size chart table. You could take half an Admiralty chart, or certainly a chart kit here. Also works good with a laptop like I've shown in previous videos, and you can use the television screen as a second monitor. We can rig it that way. That's very similar to the 2-cabin model. And of course we have our electrical access here. The 120 or the AC is blocked off, so you just don't go touching it. There are diagrams in here showing you where all your fuel tanks are and your water tanks. And there is a empty circuit breaker box for lots of additional equipment that you might put in, water maker, SSB, that sort of thing. This unscrews here, and there's access to the back of the 12-volt. The way this works is you have very simple single switches, and then you can fuse additional items on those switches if you wish. Same thing with the bottom here. This opens up for additional access. Overhead in this area, we do have all of the shelf storage that the previous model had. The cabinets up here. Engine access on this boat is like all of the Jeanneaus, very good, and this boat is like the 51 and the other 54 models in that we have a door that will just raise right up. Forward access, you have immediate visibility of your expansion tank for your antifreeze. You have your primary filter here with a primer on top. That's the Yanmar standard. This space is actually large enough down the road if you wanted to have a Raycar 500 FG in there, that would fit, but this works fine. There's a secondary filter right here, so both are easy to get to. The other thing is down here is the impeller. It's right there. You don't need a special tool. It's just it looks like probably an 8mm wrench. But if you wanted to, you could put a speed seal on it, but I'm not sure if you need to because it's easy to get to. And here is your strainer for your raw water. And over on the other side, there's a vented loop for your exhaust water. And there's also, of course, an antifreeze fill for your heat exchanger. And there's an oil fill right here as well. The dipstick is actually accessed through a little door on the side. You could kind of reach around this way, but there's no sense to because the door is rather large on the other side, which I'll show you. So Yanmar, very easy to get to. It's well insulated. There's a clever storage up here for oil on the top shelf, oil or rags or absorbent oil pads, that sort of thing. Really neat place to have that. And a small little cubby hole here as well. Again, this is all hydraulic. It comes down quite easily. When that is up, you can access the start battery, which is right here, and there's also an intake for the engine right here. So this is your sort of your one-stop shopping place here to check everything on your engine. This door here, side access, you can see the insulation that we have. And the dipstick is right here where my left hand is, very easy to get to. There's also an oil filter right here, very easy to get to. So that's nice. You can also see underneath of the engine and look underneath in your oil pan area underneath of that to see if anything's leaking. That's a contained area from the rest of the bilge, and you can actually get in there with a pad and wipe things up. This right here, you pull off and you stick your fire extinguisher in there if you had to. Let's hope you don't have to do that. And this is access to all your electrical switches for the engine itself. It's the shut-off switches, including a ground shut-off and 2 master fuses. Here we have well-marked switches for a ground shut-off, negative, and positive for the engine and for the house. And I'll show you where the batteries are in this boat. They're really quite extensive. Let's explore a little bit what's happening in the port aft cabin here underneath of the berth. We have access to our batteries to start with. These all come off like a jigsaw puzzle, and they're really quite clever, and they don't move anywhere. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to access what's underneath here. This particular 54 has 4D gel batteries, and there are, I think, a total of 6 in this boat, but we'll look and count them all. There's access forward here that allows us to pull all of these 4Ds out without disassembling the boat, other than what I just showed you. So you just take off your positive, negative, and there are handholds on these, and you can pull them right out, put them on a pad on the floor, and out you go. But with gel batteries, if you have a 3-stage charger set up on the boat, and if you have solar or wind with a 3-stage regulator, you will keep these batteries for many, many, many years. But if you, in the chance that you had one with a bad cell or something like that, you could actually pull them out, which is good. With a 4D battery, you still can kind of heft them by yourself. It's not like a 31, but it certainly isn't an 8D. Underneath it here, I have a common ground for all of my grounds are here, and those are isolated from anything that's in the positive range, so you're not going to arc them with a wrench. So all your grounds are in here, and you could use this to put a bag in here for additional storage. On the side here, yes, we do have the additional 2 4Ds, so there are 6 on this boat for the house. We have a separate start bank, and we have a separate bank up forward, which I'll show you. That's for the bow thruster and the windlass. So you have a lot of capacity with this boat. You do have a freezer and you do have a refrigerator, and this will keep up with it. Figure if you're going to try to keep this going with solar for extended cruising, you're going to want somewhere in the vicinity of 360 to 400 watts, which will all fit on top of the bimini, or we can do something else. This little hatch here accesses all the fuel tank centers that you're going to need. The way these boats can come is you can have 2 fuel tanks, 1 in each cabin, but they're set up for the manifold ahead of time. So you'll find on this that there's a return and a feed for the engine, a return and a feed for the generator, and then there is another setup that allows you to put in, say, an S-bar or Wabasco heater. Where my hand is, and I'll show you this, there is a sender for the fuel indicator, and it comes straight out. So there's no more taking the whole boat apart to get to your fuel sender. These are very clever. The way they close, you lift up on them slightly, and there's a tab. So these won't slide around underneath the berth, and it's also marked fuel. Over here, the same kind of concepts. The way that this works is you pick it up and move it. Right where my hand is an inspection port that you can open up with a special tool, and you can go in and clean out, or at least look in part of the tank. That might be handy if you got corrupt fuel and you try to take some additional things out, not letting the filter have to do all the work. And over here is another one that you can lift up and pull and move. going the wrong way with it. And here's a, it's another sender. I'm not sure what that one is. We'll have to look that one up. And then finally, behind me, we have one more space here just for part of the builds that you just can't normally get to. And out of view of the camera, we would have for a two-tank model, we would have a manifold that you could pull that allows you to pull off the port or starboard tank. This boat just has the one tank. There is room for another tank under the starboard side, and that can be a water tank or a fuel tank or storage. The port aft cabin on the boat is designed to have a very comfortable size cabin to be very similar to the forward cabin in capacity and storage. So your guests or yourself can be here and feel that you have a similar cabin experience. There's a head with its own door that when you close the main cabin door, you have access to the head, and it has a shower stall. We have a berth that's fairly straight here, so it's easy to have your arms out on both sides, two people. There's an area where my left leg is right here. It's easy to come up onto the berth. It's easy to change this berth. These cushions are separate, but they are pinned together right here, so it's easy. They don't slide around, but you can take them out and put them in the main cabin if you're getting to the batteries, which I previously showed you. Other things that are in here, there's a very nice valance light underneath here that just put a soft light into the cabin, but you also have reading lamps, and you have general LED lamps overhead. It's very easy to read a book just by the regular switch in here. We have a storage, which I'll show you. There's a hanging locker and drawers. There's additional storage underneath some of the compartments, and there's a little cubby hole up there that you can store things. There's additional access to some machinery back here. You undo these screws. There's also a separate air conditioner for here, or a zone that's controlled from the wall up here and easy to see, and there's a vent for that. On my left-hand side, which is the outboard side, port side of the boat, there is a large window, and it slides with a cover so you can keep the light out, and there's ventilation here and ventilation overhead as well. The aft cabin has a seat, storage underneath, storage here, a shelf. There's two USB plugs and also an AC plug over here, very easy to get to, a reading lamp. We have a hanging locker here, and it opens up both sides. And there were two drawers, and they're soft closing drawers, and this is also soft closing as well. There's full sitting headroom where I am now. This is the sliding window that I mentioned. There's a little bit of a shelf space here. Lets in a lot of light. Below me is another shelf, and there's storage right here. Overhead light here, and I'm going to show you the valance light behind the camera, which is the inside bulkhead. Here again in the aft cabin, we see that there's a nice soft light that comes from behind the coach roof. The aft cabin shower stall is actually quite reasonable. It's hard to get with the angle of this camera and the lens that I have, but it does have a folding door, and they have a magnetic shut. It works quite well, and there's full standing headroom in here. And there's an adjustable shower nozzle, and there's also a rack up above for towels or wetsuits or bathing suits, that sort of thing, foul weather gear. The aft head has a towel rack, of course, a water closet. This one's manual. And we have, of course, the sink. Storage there, and there's storage behind the mirrors here. If you wish to have an electric head, we can certainly put one in this particular boat. And that actually gives you a choice of several different kinds of electric heads that the factory doesn't offer, that we can do for you. The aft head has lots of natural light with two ports and an opening port. The 2018 model is virtually unchanged from the 2017 model in the forward cabin. We have a very comfortable berth, a nice cushion padded back section here, lots of natural light, lots of light that you can control, as well as reading lamps, two different kinds, and you have sliding shades on the side windows to let in natural light. And overhead, I have them drawn now, but I have the shades on the two hatches that can force air down into the cabin. You have access to your own private head. You have his and her lockers, his and her drawers behind the camera, and underneath the berth you have his and her drawers as well. There's full standing headroom. I'm 6'2", and I have lots of room over my head about where the camera is. There's almost a 3/4 length mirror in here. It's a very good private area that is a considerable distance from the other cabins aft and also from the cockpit. So you could have people still in the cockpit at nighttime talking, and you're up here and you want to go to bed early. You can do that, and it is quiet. Each side of the boat has his and her USB connections here. So there are two, high power and low power, one for a phone, one for like an iPad or a big tablet. On both sides of the berth we have that. We also have his and her reading lamps and shelves and access and storage. It literally has exactly the same storage for two people on board and quite a bit of live aboard space. It's something that you get on the 54 that you just don't see on the smaller models. And they're soft close. Underneath the forward berth we have slats, and they fold up for access to underneath. The purpose of the slats, well, it allows for a good experience underneath the mattress, but it also allows moisture from when you're sleeping to not sit on the bottom of the mattress itself. There's an air gap between those and this base. Underneath there's access to the drawer space, but there's also a little bit of space right here that you can put things that aren't going to interfere with the drawer. European standards require a step to be able to get out the hatch, and that's what this is. Again, there's access to underneath where the drawer is. And in here, we have an air conditioning unit with additional locker space here for things that you might not get to right away, maybe additional spare sheets or something like that if you wish. And again, there's access to the bilge here. And then forward, I'll need to move my slats. We have the water tank. The water tank has a sender in it that repeats back to the nav station to tell you how much water you have in it. You have an inspection port, and you can't quite see it in the camera, but there's a large stainless steel or aluminum tube here that holds this in, so it's a secured tank. All your fittings are easy to get to. Now on the smaller boats, on smaller models, you'll see the batteries up here for the bow thruster, but on this boat they're actually accessed from the very forward skipper's cabin or storage cabin. The forward head, again, it's hard to film because of the angle of the camera, but it's quite large. You have a separate area from the stall and the head itself. The same kind of sink that's in the aft head, and the door on this one is not a folding door. It's a one-piece door that opens and closes, and it's a large shower stall. This boat also has a manual head up forward, which could be changed to an electric head if you so desire. The forward head shower stall is full height. It also has a seat, full standing headroom. All the Jeanneaus have shades and screens on every single hatch that opens, and any hatch on the side also has a shade. These can lock, and there's an adjustment. They're lumars on the side. The other thing you can do with these is you can do a partial opening. So if you want to lock it but still have air come in, you can have a gap here to do that. You also have a shut-off here for the lumar vent if you were offshore and don't want water coming in on your berth. One of the things that I do with these is if you don't tighten them all the way, you can come outside and you can push it down. So if you're getting ready to go sailing, you can push them down from the outside, and there's the latch continues to the outside, and you can close it from the outside. So you don't have to run down below to shut the hatches. The forward door has leather. On the side, it looks very nice when the door is closed. There is a magnetic lock on the top that keeps it from moving around when you're moving. Let's just take a look what's underneath the cabin sole in the boat. As in previous videos, I've shown how Jeanneau bonds their floors, which is the grid, to the hull, and that's very, very important and certainly differentiates the boat from many, many other semi-production models. But what we have here is we have cross beams that are made out of composite, and there's also aluminum, which I'm holding on to. We have very large stringer system Everything is gel coated, nice and clean. All your mechanicals are easy to get to. The purple item over here is a water tank, and it has your mixer valve right there, easy to get to. All your electrical for that is there. There's a pump. We have a Raymarine bus here, a fuse, all your kill bolts, which are stainless steel bolts with nuts, and they have backing plates that are stainless steel, and they look like they're 3/8. They're probably a metric size, but around 3/8. There's a very large sump for the bilge pump, so water that's in the boat doesn't come sloshing around the floors. It stays in this deep bilge, but of course you want to empty it out. There's an electric bilge pump and there's a manual bilge pump in the same sump, so it's easy to keep it dry. You could also come down here and just take it out with a sponge. It's very easy to keep a dry bilge in this boat. So overall, all the floor comes out. You can easily get to everything that's in here, and it's a very well thought out system. Here we have electrical connections for the mast and the Raymarine bus. You can see that we have a lit ATC fuse here. Roll bilge pump, deep sump, and the manual hose is right next to it. And in the center are keel bolts with backing plates, color-coded water lines, the water heater, and after that is the air conditioning pump. Port side looking aft, we have a sink drain. Two unique tubs that remove, but they're great for holding storage like cans and even box food. We can take them out and just have raw storage. Another space for a separate Tupperware container. Here we have the air conditioning intake with a clean-out valve, battery, and one of our water tanks. Slightly aft, you also see a yellow box. That's the engine starting battery. Starboard side aft, instead of a head, we have a pantry with a large storage locker, shelf space, bins, and additional shelf space and bins underneath. Starboard aft cabin has dual singles, and as an option from us, we can put a centerpiece in there. And the boat has a hanging locker. Underneath would be where you would have your spare fuel tank or another water tank. The 2018 model and the 2017 model are virtually the same on the deck layout. Same Lumar hatches, they open from the outside, they have shades, they have screens. There are inboard Jeanneau tracks. You can have an external track if you wish. There are D-rings here for additional fenders and things like that. All the deck plates open up with a winch handle. Lots of space, good bulwarks, good non-skid. You can see my previous video on the deck of the 54 for more detail, but it's a very good, easy to work around deck. On the 54, everything is led aft. I have my main sheet and my Jeanneau jib sheet here. It's 2-speed reversing electric Harken winch. I also have a 2-speed electric reversing Harken winch here as well for the jib car and for the out haul for the main. On the other side of the boat, I have the ability to pull in the jib and be able to pull in the main from the same position with this winch. Here you can see the courtesy lights turned on. There are 4 lights underneath of the table, 2 on top of the table, independently switched, and 1 on the port wheel. Here I'll switch on the LEDs in the bimini. Lights up the entire cockpit. At nighttime, I have set the instruments for a lower light setting, and the compass light actually turns on when you have the navigation lights on. The autopilot is on, the plotter is on, the bow thruster and the chain counter are dark because they don't have the engine running. Your winch controls do light up as well. Port side, we have a multifunction display, compass, and a multifunction small instrument. The boat has LED navigation lights, and mid-mast we have a steaming light. Underneath of it is a deck floodlight, and of course there's an anchor light. The boat has an impressive side profile at nighttime. The hull windows can all be closed with shades. I have them all open at the moment. There are several lighting options for the forward cabin. Here everything is on. Turn off the overhead lights with just the accent. Now just the overhead. Overhead with all other lights, just the reading lamps. In the main salon galley area, we have accent, off, accent, all on, just overhead, off, everything. Thanks for watching. I'm Scott Rocknak for Blue Nose Yacht Sales. If you're coming to Newport or Annapolis, please ask for me by name, and I'll be glad to get you aboard.